Welcome to the Dark Zone, an adventure racing podcast.
I think when I first started doing it, my parents would never let me do a 15-hour. And I think as I gained more responsibility or showed them that I'm responsible doing these, events, the doors opened up to more events. I mean, my parents used to be scared of letting me go out at night to do night training. They're like, make sure you carry bear spray and stuff, which smart idea. But I think just, being responsible, doing the safe and smart thing and showing what I can do has opened the doors to more opportunities.
Well, for me, the action is the juice. I'm in.
Say the word, Chef.
Let it rip.
Welcome to the Dark Zone Adventure Racing Podcast. This is your host, Brian Gatens. We're delighted to have on Full Steam Ahead Adventure Racing and their teacher/coach, Jeremy Johnson. A high school team from Maryland. They do a wonderful job breaking down their attraction to the sport, how they've grown as teammates, and their aspirations for future races. They do a great job, and yes, folks, the kids are all right. Thanks for listening to The Dark Zone. Thanks for being here. If you like what you are listening to, please like, click, and subscribe. And remember, if you keep racing, we'll keep talking.
Hello, this is Frank Johnson, and I'm thrilled to announce that adventure racing is coming back to Iowa. The Wild Driftless Adventure Race will be October 4th in the Driftless region of northeastern Iowa, featuring two options, the 9-hour Wild Driftless and the 4-hour Wild Driftless Light. Come and explore the region's rugged beauty and let us help you shed that image of Iowa you have in your head. Gone are most of the cornfields. Instead, you'll be greeted by sheer rock faces, hardwood forests, and crystal clear trout streams. We have fun single-track mountain biking, those famous Iowa gravel roads, Riffley River paddling, and fantastic forest trekking on a course designed to challenge avid racers while also serving as the perfect entry event into the sport. This is an adventurer's adventure race, and we hope to see you there, October 4th, hosted at Camp Iwalu in Strawberry Point, Iowa. Wild Driftless is a proud member of the Wisconsin Adventure Racing Series. Learn more at www.wilddriftless.com.
Imagine a world where young women in Afghanistan and Pakistan rise above societal constraints, embracing their strength and potential. Ascend Athletics is making this vision a reality. Through mountaineering-based leadership training, Ascend empowers girls and women aged 15 to 24 to become courageous leaders in their communities. By conquering physical summits, these young women build self-esteem and develop skills that last a lifetime. Operating since 2015 in Afghanistan, expanded to Pakistan in 2023, Ascend focuses on regions where gender inequality is most pronounced, providing tools for girls and women to lead empowered lives. Join the Dark Zone in supporting these brave young women as they climb towards a brighter future. Visit ascendathletics.org to learn more about and contribute to this transformative mission. And remember, Ascend pays nothing for the spot. We love the work that they do, and the Dark Zone is happy to support it. Welcome to the Dark Zone Adventure Racing Podcast. This is your host, Brian Gatens. Interview we've been looking forward to for a while. We had to reschedule a bit, not a big deal. This is a team that I've heard great things about. Delighted to bring them on the show. Delighted to have their teacher here with them. We are speaking to Full Steam Ahead. They are an adventure racing team based out of Brunswick High School in Brunswick, Maryland. We are joined, believe it or not, by their teacher whose name is Jeremy. There's a Jeremy who races. There's a Jared who races. And a Jocelyn is going to join us in a little bit. But I don't think having a J in your name is a requirement. We may dig into that later, but I don't know. But first, I want to go to Jeremy Johnson, who's the teacher and an adventure racer who brought this club to Brunswick. Jeremy, tell us about the club. What do you guys got going on over there?
So Full Steam Ahead has been like a long time coming project. I'm a teacher at Brunswick. I've taught at a couple different schools in the county. Found adventure racing myself about 5-6 years ago, and I'd come back to school teaching, full classrooms of kids and just tell them about these amazing adventures. And then some kids started asking questions about it. They wanted more details. And it started with me taking 2 kids to a local fall foliage adventure race. And we just went out there and had a great time. From there, it kind of started to build to there was more interest in the kids getting outdoors, biking, doing that kind of stuff. And we were eventually able to get a little bit of funding to get some flags and, introduced myself to some Cal Topo. Huge shout out to Mark Harris for his YouTube videos on that. That was super educational and helpful. And, Alan Wagner on that as well. And with that, I was able to really create some amazing maps, and we're lucky enough to have a really awesome mountain bike course right out back. So we have a lot of land. We have access to a mountain bike course. So great orienteering. We're really close to a river. And it just kind of presented itself as a great location to start this club. We started small. We got some kids that would come out to some events. And I mean, we've seen as many as in like 2 and 3 day events, we've had up to 80 some kids come out to our events. We have only about 800 kids in the high school. So that's at one point between running like a 1 day session and then that same course the next day, because of kids' conflicts and schedules, we've had, 10% of our school participate in an adventure race at our school.
Wow. So that's, and this is a club, right? And so clearly, it's not a team. There's not tryouts. There's just all comers are welcome. Very, very much, adventure racing ethic. I love the idea of attraction, not promotion, right? The fact that you came back, you talked about it out loud. Kids felt magnetized to do it. Next thing you know, you're doing it. Plus, we're very fortunate too. You're in a geographic area that it works really well. You have access to shout out to Mark and Alan for really helping you out there. And so we also have joining us today. We have 2 seniors. 2 young gentlemen. We're waiting. Jocelyn is finishing up an AP exam. I'm sure she's going to do great. Let's get that 5, Jocelyn. We're rooting for you. Jeremy, I'm going to come to you first. Talk to me a bit about your adventure racing history. What attracted you to be part of the club?
Well, I've always loved being outdoors. I love fishing, hunting, going on hikes. I've always loved that. But, sometimes you're just like, I'm going to go for a hike and you don't have a goal. It's like, yeah, I'm going to go see a pretty view and walk back down. But when Johnson was telling us these stories, I mean, I got excited, get a map, get lost in the woods, find some checkpoints, go through swamps. It sounded fun. So me and Eli, we decided to do a race at the school that he put on. We crushed it. And from there, we, got mountain bikes. I started learning more AR and AR YouTube videos, watch a lot of those. Got Mark Latanzi's navigation book. I mean, I've been, doing lots of research and scouting areas before races. And yeah, here we are.
Jared, how about you? What brought you to the club?
So I really got along well with Johnson because I played soccer and Johnson did in high school as well as a little bit in college. And I love, fitness. I love running. My parents used to run 5Ks all the time. And so I've always been a big runner. And Johnson sort of reached out to me about this club. And, he's like, there's a bit of running involved. He's like, you should come out to a race. So I went with 2 of my friends and I had a good time. Obviously, that navigation piece was very new to me. I was just used to, running in a straight line or in a circle. So looking at a map got me really intrigued into learning how to, take my running to the next level in a way where I could also involve, my mind into thinking about like what I'm going to do.
So clearly the 2 of you were there. You had some experience beforehand, and then you found that like your natural desires to be outside and to hike and fish and all of that met nicely with adventure racing. But you make it sound like it was easy to do. Something had to be hard. And when I asked that question, Jeremy shook his head a little bit. So I want to go back to Jeremy a little bit. Jeremy, what was difficult about the adventure racing when you first started?
The running. I hate running. I used to do track like once. I showed up to 1 track meet. I could not run. I was like, oh my God. So I worked. I put in earbuds. I went on runs. I went on 5-mile runs, twice a week. And I worked on my running endurance. I mean, my biking, I went on bike rides before. I'm strong on bike. My nav was pretty decent, but my running endurance is what was the toughest thing for me. But I mean, now we just came off a 6-hour race and a 15-hour race before that. I think my endurance is definitely, improving.
So what was the first non-Brunswick event that you did as a race? What was your first true adventure race that anybody could do?
It was a spring bloom adventure race in Lee Sylvania State Park. It was a 4-hour no bike.
4 hours. And how did that go for you?
We did pretty good. We got lost once, but we didn't tip our canoe, so that's a good sign. We did really good. I think we placed in the middle of the pack, which isn't bad for our first race. It was lots of fun.
The race that you had there, and we all do it, right? And Mr. Johnson, your teacher, does it. I lived through it myself. That when you're driving to the race course, you're thinking about how you want that race to go, right? And whether we know it or not, we kind of set these expectations in our heads along the way. Did it go the way that you expected?
I'd say so. Yeah. We weren't going into that race expecting to win. We weren't going into that race, expecting to be dominant. We just wanted to go in, not get drastically lost and, come back before the cutoff time. And I think we succeeded in our goals in that case.
Jared, how about you? What was your first race?
So that was our first official race outside of the school. I say the same as him. It was really fun, and again, we had that goal in mind of just trying to finish. And we didn't have as much training up to it compared to races now. So it was kind of just throwing us in the deep end there. But we picked it up pretty fast. Obviously, Jeremy was saying, that fitness level sort of came in to account for races like that. Here at the school, we do no more than, an hour or two. So that first 4 hour was a big step for us in, stepping into the adventure race scene, especially with, being on a boat as well, and a canoe. That was my first time, at least. I'd never been on the water like that. So that was a big leap for us.
So Jeremy talked about how his cardio was what he really had to work on. That was his biggest growth point, right? What was yours?
Mine definitely was mountain biking. I wasn't really a big biker, even as a kid. I only first learned how to ride a bike, but I didn't, bike as much as Jeremy or, other students here. So once we threw mountain biking out there, it was a little rough for me at first, learning how to, navigate through some of those technical areas, especially with, routes and these trails. It's not just straight, pavement. So that was definitely the hardest challenge for me, was learning how to, develop those skills. But once I got past that hump, I was able to really excel in biking now. So
a lot of newer racers jump into races that are over their heads, right? And they kind of don't care. Right. And they'll kind of make it up as they go along. How did you feel? How well prepared did you feel for that first race? Did you feel like it was easier for you? Or did you feel that it was or it was over your heads? Because you mentioned the deep end before, you mentioned the canoeing, how I'm gonna use the word anxiety, not the right word to use, but how anxiety-ish did the race make you feel?
A little bit. Obviously, for the trekking leg, we were a little nervous just because of distance wise. We'd never, done that much terrain or land. Again, the boat was a first time thing for me. So I know I had a lot of anxiety going into that. I remember our first race, we got up to a checkpoint and immediately got jammed in between a bunch of other teams, and we're already panicking at the beginning on trying to get out of there and get to the next checkpoint. I feel like we were prepared enough to finish. Obviously now we've learned that it takes a lot more preparation to actually, compete. But there was a decent level of anxiety in that race for sure.
Right. But but to that point, the anxiety was appropriate, right? We talk a lot about anxiety and people saying things that worry us and things like that. Anxiety is an appropriate response to an event that is new to us, right? And the trick is to work your way through it, right? And I think that's a big thing. And Jeremy Johnson, I want to come back to you to talk a bit about this, because as a teacher and developmentally, you could get this also. We are not doing developing adults, young adults, children, students a favor by shielding them from events that cause them nervousness. And as a result, we're not always doing them a favor, and they should go into the deep end. Talk a little bit about your philosophy as a venture racer and marry that to your work with children.
All right. Yeah, definitely. I think one of the difficult things is, as far as an adventure racer for me, was, obviously acquiring those skills and then transferring that to kids. So as an educator, we know we've got different modalities of education. We've got different modalities and learning styles for these kids. And I think that one of the big challenges for me is finding a way to marry all of the skills that need to be taught at the various levels to the different students that come into the club. So, we have, at any time, in February, we had 42 kids come out in 22-degree weather to race. So just gear alone, trying to educate those kids on the kind of gear that they need to be out there for 3 or 4 hours, all the way to the map skills, and trying to do all of that and keep it entertaining and engaging for them. But at the same time, like you just mentioned, it's I don't want to shelter them too much. Because there's a lot of grit and a lot of things that have to be learned. That's really hard to teach in a classroom. It's hard to teach in a club setting. And I think these club members have had some experiences that have really shaped them, and I think in positive ways that is going to carry far beyond the classroom and far beyond their, their life experience. I mean, I've seen, some of our girls come back completely covered in mud with the biggest smiles ever, like they just conquered a mountain. These two guys sitting here, the last two races, 2 flat tires, changing their own flat tires, and the grit that they've had to go through to learn to do that. One of our 2 girl teams, one of their race teammates, their pedal came off in the last race, and they're, and I rolled up onto him because I was also racing that as a family division race. I had my 4-year-old with me on my bike and riding around, and we come up on him and calm and as collected as could be. And it was just like that point for me was like, okay, they've got it, whether they find the checkpoint or not, or it's that life experience and that they can do tough things and really persevere. So, seeing that, I think it's also kind of transferred back to my classroom style too. Like as much as my classroom has helped me and my, skills as a teacher has helped me become a good club manager for this, I think it's also done the reverse. It's kind of given me a lot more patience and different, approaches with kids. Yeah.
So Jocelyn, welcome. I'm glad that you're able to make it. We know you had to finish that test up. It's great to have you here right now. Talk to us about your introduction to Full Steam Ahead. How did you get involved with the team?
I got involved through his classroom at first, so I wasn't part of it. And then I joined his class for government. And then we kind of went from there. We had the first race at the school, which I joined with 2 other people, and we had a blast at. And then from there, it just spiraled down into like the broad runoff events and everything.
So what was it about? I mean, clearly, and what's nice about interviewing the 3 of you, and Jeremy, we see this a lot ourselves too. Some people are they're hooked from the beginning, right? They do their first race, they get a taste of it, and they're just right down the path on that. So Jocelyn, what was it about the experience that you were magnetized to it so quickly? I really like the team aspect of everything, just like everybody working together. The ability to work through problems, like you don't have all your resources right there for you, but you kind of have to find the ones you do have and use them to be able to navigate through stuff. And clearly, and we've now mentioned the idea of teamwork 3 times now, right? That's coming. All 3 of you mentioned teamwork here. And I'll come back to you, Jeremy, for this question. For the idea of teamwork and the idea of learning how to do that, how much of the teamwork, the growth as a good teammate, did you know going into your first race, or were you surprised by how well you had to work together?
So team wise, I knew we were gonna have to work together. I didn't realize how much we were gonna be put on to each other, kind of. I personally am really bad at using a compass, but I'm the navigator, so it's kind of hard. But then my teammates will immediately back me up with a compass and stuff if we're lost or something. And I didn't realize how much team effort it was put into it.
Gotcha. So there's a lot of that interdependence, right? So even though you struggled with the map and compass, you knew the fact that you looked over your shoulder, you had teammates that were there to help you, and they knew that they had to do that. So therefore the team there was no surprise for anybody, and there was no friction because of that. That's what you're saying.
Yeah.
Jeremy, how about you? And after Jeremy, Jared, we're going to go to you for that question. Jeremy, tell us about teamwork.
Well, going into our first race, I think the 3 of us, we were friends, not teammates, but we learned to rely on each other. If I'm navigating, I know I'm going down this way, but as I get further into a race, I'm going to start talking to my teammates and be like, hey, I want to take a right here. Can we walk through it? Make sure we all agree where we're going. Or if someone's really hurting, we'll pull them along. If our rabbit is hurting, I'll go punch a checkpoint and give him a second to breathe. It's crazy how quickly we came together to be able to work together effectively and finish these races.
So before I bring over to Jared, I want to follow up with you, Jeremy, first. And all 3 of you can answer this question too. Feel free to come off mute and you can answer the question if you want to jump in. What other opportunities did you have inside your high school experience to develop those teamwork skills? Or is Full Steam Ahead unique in how they developed your teamwork skills?
I'd say Full Steam Ahead is very unique. I think Mr. Johnson created a very unique club here that allows us to, problem solve, problems we would never, attempt if it wasn't for these races. I think what Mr. Johnson did here is a great opportunity for us.
Gotcha. So it was unique. So the marrying of who you are as students, friends, and now teammates, by connecting that to the ethic of adventure racing, you were developed a skill set that you never would have developed otherwise. That's the point that you're making there. Jared, teamwork, what do you think?
beyond the physical aspect, I think with the mental as well, I didn't realize how big of an impact my teammates would have on me when we're like, 6-7 hours deep into a race, and you start to have that little fatigue, and you're all you can think about is that finish line with food at the end. Like, having your teammates there to back you up and encourage you to continue to push forward, and like, really, for me, I didn't realize how much other people could push me to do like better. Like, my teammates have really helped me do things I didn't think I could do before.
And Jocelyn, how about you with teammates? What do you think?
Teammates, I think they're amazing. Like, they always push you through on spots where you're like doubting yourself. We've had, like, during the spring race and during the Origin we had lots of doubts because we got lost quite a bit, or like one of us were like really tired, and we just like pushed each other through. We like guided each other, and like what we knew, we like would guide each other through on that.
So what strategies have you learned along the way that when a teammate is faltering, when he or she's having a hard time, what strategies have you learned to help them get through that?
Well, I think it's unique for each person based off who's struggling. I mean, one person can react well to motivation. The other person kind of like wants their own space. I found the best way for me to motivate people is like, come on, guys, we're like 5 minutes to the next checkpoint or 5 minutes to the next TA. Like, come on, we can push. Like, I think that's what works best for our team. But sometimes that's not always the case. Sometimes you just need, 2 minutes to catch your breath and, reorientate yourself and go on from there.
Got it. Jared, what do you think?
No, I agree. Obviously, like Jeremy was saying, like telling us like, how close we are to the next checkpoint or next, TA really helps like for the rest of our mentals to, understand that we are close to another break, or we are close to that, adrenaline rush when we see a checkpoint. So I think that really works well for us. I know other teammates, like other teams I race with as well, like we'll just stay quiet. And at least for me, it doesn't work well for me for too long, because then I just feel like, the emotions start brewing, and then, eventually something will be said that you don't want to be said in a race. So I feel like letting out how you feel, or like letting out your thoughts, really helps your teammates to know like what's going on and how, we can go about doing things.
Yeah, I think that's spot on. I'll go back to Mr. Johnson to add to this in a second, but I will point out the one thing I've learned, and Jared, you're absolutely accurate when you say it, that different people are processing the race differently. And some teammates are quiet and they look like they're brooding. They're just being quiet. Some teammates are quiet and they're having a hard time. And you have to understand that dynamic, and you have to tailor that approach to it. I think that's a good piece of advice for the newer racers. And you are not newer racers. You're all experienced racers. For the newer racers to hear that they don't misinterpret the signals that a teammate is sending you through body language. Like, fully try to understand them. Now, Mr. Johnson, because there's so many Jeremys on the call, I'm calling him Mr. Johnson. So, Mr. Johnson, so Jeremy, based upon your experience, what have you seen with teams, and what have you recommended to the club members about teamwork?
I think that a big takeaway for all the members is kind of finding your role and your space within that team. And that doesn't necessarily have to be the same each time you're out. I mean, that can change with the group of people you're racing with. That can change, throughout the race. And as you mentioned, and some of the other club members here have mentioned, kind of recognizing that body language, not misinterpreting it, but recognizing it when your teammates might need you to pull them up or support them, and really being transparent. That's one thing I've tried to express to all of them that get into the longer, more serious races, is to really let your teammates know how you're feeling, how you're doing. Really take on those roles about pushing hydration, nutrition, team morale. All of those things are really important. And you kind of naturally already know that about yourself. Are you a type A person, a type B person? And how can you fulfill that role within your team? I think sometimes too, it's helped kids find a voice that maybe they didn't have. Maybe they were that quiet kid, but out there on the course, they see that their team's dragging and they step up and they really kind of become jovial, or they start joking, or whatever it is that pulls them through. I know personally for my race teams, I've had a teammate in the past on the hour, every hour, we're saying what we're thankful for. And that's hard to keep, sometimes that lags behind and it kind of gets silly occasionally, but it keeps that conversation going and it keeps you kind of in the moment. And I think that's important because there's so many beautiful things happening in a race. And I think sometimes we get so in our own headspace that we fail to see that. super important to stop and take a look at that mountain and that sunset for a second, or, just enjoy what's going on. But again, finding that role and, fulfilling it. And that's kind of the message I try to share with the club members.
Yeah, a very common, when I interview people about their races, they sometimes kick themselves that they don't take the opportunity to appreciate what they're doing. Right there, you go to these amazing places, especially international races, right? And you go to these amazing places, you see beautiful things, and you're so busy, you have your head in the map, you don't stop and look around and realize that you're on top of this peak, and the beauty of it all is right in front of you. And so you're right about that. I like the idea of being grateful, the idea of stopping and reminding ourselves to stay on top of that. I will share that most likely my teammates will say we're grateful when Gaten shuts up, but I think that's a fair thing we want to put out there. Jocelyn, we talk a lot about taking care of our bodies during the race, right? The foot care, the brambles, the shin guards, the things like that. Clearly jumping into a race 4, 6, how many hours it would be, is some wear and tear in your body. How do the three of you, and we'll start with you, as I mentioned, Jocelyn, how do you take care of your skin, your feet, all of that during the race? What are your strategies?
So we haven't done, me and my teammate haven't done a lot of big races. Our biggest one was probably the Orgine. So the orienteering one was about 8 hours. And it was kind of just if your feet started to hurt a little bit, we can take a break. And then if you got a hot spot, put a Band-Aid on it, or talk about it. Don't just keep going.
I love the fact, by the way, that you talk about you have another big race and you say 8 hours, right? I mean, that's adventure racing is crazy like that, right? I mean, if you go to work, if Mr. Johnson goes to work on a Monday morning and he's in the faculty room and says, yeah, I had an 8-hour race this weekend, it wasn't that long, to look at him like he's crazy, right?
Brian, can I interject here for a second?
Go ahead, Jeremy.
I got to just say something here. This, I've had to tone teammates and really club members down on this, because some of these guys, when they first started, they'd be like, yeah, a mile's a long way. They felt like a mile. You'd say to them, hey, yeah, I set up this 3-hour course. And they're like, what? 3 hours, right? And then they would be explaining it and trying to get and that's how a lot of our club has grown, is that these kids get so passionate about it, they pull their friends in, right? Mm-hmm. And you've got Jeremy up here and standing in front of 35 kids in a club meeting, and he's like, yeah, guys, this race is going to be great. It's only 3 hours. It'll be about 10 miles. And you should see it. And I'm like, hey, you got to remember, 2 years ago, you thought a mile was a long way. And Jocelyn she totally captured that perfectly right there with you. Yeah, just 8 hours, right? Isn't that funny? Yeah. It just blows me away every time what they're capable of.
And I think it's an interesting dynamic. And I do want to come to Jeremy and Jared about how they take care of their bodies. But I do want to make this point. We can come back to this later. I'll make a note to come back to it. How when you get a taste of it and you do a 4-hour race, all of a sudden you level up to an 8-hour race. And if you're not careful, you find yourself racing for 7 days across Vermont. It kind of escalates on top of it. But I remember I was down in the Breakdown, which was a great race by 361 Adventures. And I was doing the 18-hour race. And I saw the 30-hour people leaving. I'm like, oh, I'd never raced 30 hours. But next thing you know, you're racing 30 hours, right? So I think, Jocelyn, I love the fact, thank you for bringing that ethic alive at adventure racing, that it was just 8 hours. So thank you for that. Jared, going to come to you. Taking care of yourself physically during the race, your skin, your feet. What do you do?
So obviously big thing is, muscle and muscle cramps. Now, thankfully, most of us have had a sports background to understand that. But I think even for me, what I didn't understand was especially on the trekking, the amount of woods and, just these areas that are really thick that you go through, and your body comes out all scratched up. So my first race, I showed up in a shirt and a t-shirt or shorts, and I was like, all right, I'll be good. And then at the end of the race, I come out all scratched up, and I remember getting in the shower and I was like, oh, that was not great. So since then I've learned, wear leggings underneath. And then especially if I know at longer races, I'll wear a long sleeve underneath my shirt as well. So those really helped us, avoid extra, body damage to your body compared to, just the muscle, the scratches along with that, we learned to avoid.
I have a vision. It's pretty funny that a few of you might be sitting at the family dinner table after a couple of races and saying to their parents, I'm good. It doesn't hurt that bad. And the parents looking at each other across the table like, what's going on here? But not that, Mom. It's only a flesh wound. Jeremy, what do you say?
Yeah, I think Jared perfectly captured the physical, the forms, everything that really hurts. I think the biggest thing for me was food. I mean, you don't realize when going into a race how many calories you're going to burn. Even if it's a 4 or 5 hour race, you burn a ton of calories. My first races, I was hurting at the end just because I had no food in me. So now, I'm prepared. I eat a full dinner before the night before, big breakfast, and I pack my backpack full of snacks, bars, everything. I even in my TA bin put a cooler with a whole fast food pizza. And whenever I get to my TA bin, I eat 2 slices of pizza, and it keeps me going. And it's exactly what I need.
Yeah, a great strategy too is that McDonald's hamburgers, when wrapped in tinfoil, will last forever. We did a race one time in Scotland where the morning of the race, I walked down to McDonald's and I tried to buy 35 hamburgers through the kiosk, right? Because they had the manager came out in Scotland and he's like talking to me and I'm talking to him and he's like, "You really want to?" And of course they were like, the Americans should have buy 35 McDonald's hamburgers. Like that was a running joke, but they last forever in a bin. They are eternal. And pizza, double wrapped in tinfoil, lasts forever. So in the dark zone on the interviews, we hit all the big parts. So we hit our food, we talk about taking care of our bodies, our teamwork, all those things come together. What I'm curious about here is, the three of you as young adults, and you're transitioning through high school, and you're moving on to other parts of your life. I'm really curious, and Mr. Johnson touched on this a little bit too. What has this taught you that you think you will apply outside the realm of adventure racing? That if it was not for Full Steam Ahead, you wouldn't understand something about the world. What have you learned along the way? And any one of you could jump in and come off Zoom.
I'll jump in. I've learned a lot from this, just from like the mental aspect of like pushing through different challenges to like how nice people can actually be. Like it was funny in our 4-hour, we were like, this doesn't feel like a race at all. Like everybody's so nice to each other. It's like we pass somebody, they're like, "Oh, like good job, keep it up," and then like like it's like that community that you have.
Yeah, and I think so too. I think on that note, Jocelyn, very often people who have negative and combative personalities don't get along well with others. They either align those behaviors to get along with their teammates, or they go do other sports, right? Because not everybody is cut out for adventure racing, right? There are some people who, that as an individual, they see the world a certain way and they'll force themselves to do it that way. But as an adventure racer, you realize very quickly that you have 2, 3, 4 teammates around you that you have to sort of play nice, if you will, and you have to change your choices. Gentlemen, what do you have to share about that?
What I was going to talk about is like this great community that we've brought up here a couple times. Like I didn't realize that how much they were going to show me on like how much more I can achieve. Again, we talk about how like, we first did our first 2 or 3 hour and we saw people doing 15 hour, like there's no way. But when you have that almost like supporting cast around you to help you encourage and build up to something like a 15 hour. I feel like that's something I'm going to be able to take with me even after, college, high school, all that, is that like, if I'm around the right people, I can do things that I never thought I could do before.
Yeah, it's true. A part of human nature too, and I say it all the time when I work with students is, and this is human nature, and this is from the day you're born to the day you pass, you will be the average of your 5 closest contacts. Look at the 5 people you interact with the most. You are going to be them, whether you like it or not. And I would talk to people, and not just students, but listen, if you're hanging out with people who aren't nice, you're going to become like them, whether you like it. Like we are an adaptive species. We become like the environment we're in. And if you're in a negative environment, you become a negative person. That's just human nature right there in a nutshell. And it is undefeated across time. No one's able to resist those consistent negative influences, but we adapt to positive influences as well. And it seems like you're saying that too. Jeremy, how about you? What about after, from adventure racing, what do you bring out into the world from here?
I think my answer might be cliche, but it's problem solving. I think just, going to a race, you don't know what's going to happen in the race. You could get lost, go up the wrong reentrant, get a flat tire. You don't know what's going to happen, but you with your team, sit down and work the problem and just, say, okay, I'm here. What do I need to do to get to the next step? And you talk it out and plan it out and like, okay, let's go do it. I think that experience is going to help me greater in life.
It's interesting too. I think that adults, and I've seen this throughout my time working with students, which is well over 3 decades, right? I found that adults consistently underestimate the capacity of teenagers. They just do. They think that they could do less than they could actually do. And I think that Full Steam Ahead kind of pushes back on that a little bit. Mr. Johnson, Jeremy, you want to talk a bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I can't tell you a time that I've put on an event here or I've seen these kids go to an event that I'm not just blown away and surprised. the number of kids that show up in severe weather conditions, wind, rain, you name it, they still show up. 22-degree weather, they show up. And other adults will come to me and they'll be like, yeah, that's really great. I can't believe those kids are doing it. And in my head, I'm like, no, I know they can do it. And that's not.
You're not surprised.
No, I'm not. And I don't mean that to be negative to any one of those club members.
Right.
And not that I'm like, I expect you to be there. No, I just expect it out of them because they're capable. And I think the biggest takeaway from that is number one, the adults being surprised by it. I think there's important lessons for us to learn as adults about what these kids are actually capable of, because it changes our expectations and how we push them. But more importantly than that, Brian, is the expectations that these kids have of themselves.
Right.
That's the beauty.
Well, that's the whole goal, right, Jeremy? The whole goal is that we want to create situations in which developing young adults realize that their capacity for what they can or cannot do is very, very, very. It's much higher than they tend to think about themselves, right? They need that experience. They need to see adults sort of lead them along the way and say, listen, you can do this, and you can do difficult things, and you can persevere through it, as opposed to just avoiding those things.
Right.
All right. So for the three students on the call, how has this impacted your personal relationships outside of the team? Have you had to talk to the adults in your life about, no, I could take on more responsibility. I could do these things. Like, you don't need to keep such a close eye on me. How has that impacted your close relationships with, say, your family?
I'll start here. I think when I first started doing it, my parents would never let me do a 15-hour. And I think as I gained more responsibility or showed them that I'm responsible doing these, events, the doors opened up to more events. I mean, my parents used to be scared of letting me go out at night to do night training. They're like, make sure you carry bear spray and stuff, which smart idea. But I think just, being responsible, doing the safe and smart thing and showing what I can do has opened the doors to more opportunities.
That hit pretty much on point, as in, like, the more you do, the more they trust you. Yeah, pretty much on point.
Yeah, I was just going to say, like, as well as trust is also, like, almost like a respect, not necessarily for my parents, but, like, even just my siblings, like, them knowing that, like, I just went and did a 15-hour, like, now they look at you differently. They're like, wow, okay, so, like, he can push himself, to do something like that. Like, he can go out and be adventurous to do something he hasn't done before. And where before, this club, I don't like, I did soccer, but like most of my family's done soccer. This is something that's very unique to them. When they hear a 15-hour, they're so like shocked by it. They're like, wow, like you can get, like they can plan a race that long. Like for them, it's just very shocking. And so it's nice to see their, reactions to when you come home or like they see you at the finish line after you've completed something great like that.
Yeah, there's that healthy spillover effect into the rest of your life, right? You could do this thing in isolation, and as a result of doing this thing, the people that are around you see that you can do it, and therefore they have more faith in you. You picked up on that. So let's talk aspirationally here now. You're all adventure racers, you're all experienced. You've done 15-hour races, you've done bigger races. What are your goals? Like, how do you want to grow as an adventure racer? How do you want to expand this into your life?
So for races, I'm trying to push my team to do a 24-hour. It's a hot topic debate right now. I want us to go up to New York and do a 24-hour race. I don't know if we're there yet, but like we're looking at like ranking and stuff, and it's still early, but like we're doing good for like being a young team. I think we're doing really good. So I think if we can keep at it, keep training through college, I think we could be a very competitive team, and it would be really cool to be a competitive team at like nationals maybe one day in the future.
About Jared or Jocelyn, what are your aspirations? Where do you want adventure racing to take you?
Well, so like Jeremy was saying, we'd love to, compete nationally, but I think I also just want to continue the habits that I've learned from adventure racing. Obviously, the problem solving comes in, but I think also the training habits. Even if I decide to stop racing one day, I hope to continue to, go out every, at least 3-4 times a week and, go for a run or get on my bike. Like I want to continue those habits of being, an outdoors person to continue even long after racing.
What about you, Jocelyn?
Yeah, I mean, I would absolutely love to go out and do a bigger race. We're planning on doing the 13 in the fall, which will be nice, and then continue to step up from there. Like our team, you had this on another podcast. It's funny. It's like we say we're like the capital A and then like the lowercase r because like we like the adventure more to it. And, like, I love that. I was like, I love it, but like we just love going out and seeing it and being able just the time outside. It's just so refreshing. And then like everybody with you there, it's just like fresh air. It's just so nice.
So I was curious about this. There's a lot of discussion in general society today. First off, as it annoys me a little bit that it feels like people talk about teenagers a lot, but they don't talk to teenagers a lot, right? Adults always have opinions, but like, let's actually talk to the students and see what they have to think. And I'm curious about your thought here. A very common conversation topic now is the impact of social media on students, right? And how they live their lives online. And without really getting into your own social media habits, in a bigger picture idea, how do you think adventure racing and this kind of experience balances what social media tells you about the world?
I think it's like almost completely different. Like social media is a lot of like negativity in my opinion. Like a lot of people can be like very mean. And then as I was saying, like when we were out on the 4-hour, my teammate's pedal came off maybe like 6 different times. And like every single team that like came by us stopped. They were like, are you okay? Do you need help? And like everybody was so supportive.
Right. As opposed to social media, which very often is built to pit people against one another. Right. Because that's what they want to do. Right. That's why if you look at it like, and I don't want to get on my soapbox here, but like they're like Gen Z versus millennials versus Gen X, because they want to create that adversarial position because it puts your eyes back on the screen. And so they want us to fight each other. But to your point, Jocelyn, when you're racing and the phone is turned off and it's in your pack, that goes away and you see people in their very, very best. I think that's a really astute observation.
I want to interject here for just a second. I want to say that like these club members, a positive social media here, we all know Strava, right? So kind of like a social media platform, but based in good spirits. These kids took it on themselves to actually create their own Strava for our club. And I will tell you what I've seen, number one increase in just output, whether they're by themselves or I'll see like groups of these kids outside of me organizing this, Brian. This is now no longer just something for me to organize and that they do. They're out there planning their own events. They're out setting bikes and getting groups of kids from the clubs to come bike together. And that means they're off their phones. Mm-hmm. They're off their phones. They're not on social media. They're out there experiencing the world, kind of like what Jared was saying, like having this motivation to enjoy the world. And I think we need more of that. And that's one of the things that I love seeing with these kids is that they're willing to put that phone down and go spend some time outside.
Right. And I think that's a fair point to make because, when they talk about the idea of banning cell phones in schools and the impact on students, a very common question is, well, what will fill that void? Right. Just removing the device doesn't necessarily solve the problem. There's still going to be that vacuum that has to be solved. Jared or Jeremy, your thoughts about social media and just teenage life and what the race has taught you?
I think, like you said, social media likes to, pin people against each other. So I think like this, club being so unique really helps people come together as a community. Like Josh is saying, we've had great experiences when we've gone to other races, people encouraging us because, they know we're, Johnson's high school team. So they're like, best of luck out there. And it's just very kind people in this community that I think, a lot of other people could tap into if, they weren't always on social media. But yeah.
They think they know the world by what they're seeing on the screen. They have no idea, right? They're seeing this myopic view of what's going on. Jeremy, what do you think?
Yeah, I really like what Jared and Josh said about community. But one thing I see is like you go on social media, you look at athletes. These are like built athletes. They're like professionals. That's all they do. And you think, only professional athletes can be active, do this stuff. But when you go to an adventure race, you see a wide range of people, and they all came out for the same goal, to have fun in the woods, whether you're competitive or not. I think that's a really cool part about adventure racing is, you have a wide range of people, but social media doesn't necessarily show that most of the time.
You've done a very, very nice job today talking about full steam ahead and what the sport has brought to you. Are there any questions that I didn't ask? Anything that you want to talk about out loud for the podcast that you feel that I might have missed? Is there something you want to touch upon that feels important to you?
I'd like to say that the amount of work that Mr. Johnson did to get this club running shouldn't be overlooked. I mean, the amount of planning he's done for events, the permitting, all of this stuff, it's a lot of work. And he did it all for us. I think I'm really thankful for all the work he's done for us.
That's wonderful. That's very nice. And thank you. And I'm sure that Mr. Johnson recognizes that and is appreciative of that. And I also would be willing to bet too that if I know Jeremy at all, that while it's nice to hear that, that's not the motivator. The motivator is giving kids a great experience to go and do these wonderful things.
Well, yeah, that's what I was going to say. Is actually, I want to thank him as well for just inspiration. I know personally for me, like I said, my parents used to be big into running, and I never really got into that. But after these races, I've now gone and started doing half marathons, 5Ks, 10Ks again. So like just that inspiration factor has been really nice for us students as part of the club.
Yeah, I really agree with that. I mean, like for me, mountain biking wise, I used to go all the time, and then like my brothers and everything dropped out, and then like Johnson, he picked right back up with me. Like the other day we went out, and he like got me good with berms again. He got me like comfortable going down tracks, going down turns and stuff, and it's just like a great experience now.
Wonderful. So on that note, Mr. Johnson, I want to give you the closing thought here about your team. Talk about Full Steam Ahead for the club and what it's meant to you and what you want to give back to the community.
Brian, I really appreciate that. And we want to thank you for your time. I'm sure you've experienced that roller coaster in education where like you got that half full or half empty, depending on the perspective you take at the time. This club has definitely helped fill that cup for me. The classroom's amazing. I love the kids. I love teaching everyone. But like something that keeps you coming in here is getting to see these kids thrive outside of that classroom. And that's what it's all about. And it's getting kids from all different backgrounds and experiences to get outside and enjoy the environment. And that's what this whole thing is about for me. It's also like really important for me. I have 3 daughters, a 7-year-old, a 4-year-old, and a 3-year-old. And like they'll come to the events. Like we put one on at Sweet Run State Park, and they're out there helping hand out Gatorades and volunteering, and then they want to race with us. And like them seeing like other kids be active, I think is a huge part. And another piece to this is I've as educators, we see a lot of inequity, right? And, seeing kids that like have the financial backing and the kids that don't, and how we support that and how we bridge those gaps has been a big piece of this club too. My kids have never paid to do an event with me. Obviously there's expenses when they travel to other events, but we've had huge support in providing discounts for our kids to come and participate from across all of the major race organizations in this area, including Broad Runoff, Rev, Delmarva just hooked us up with some discounts for that too. Mark Harris has been a big contributor to that, bringing bikes for kids to use that didn't have bikes in events. And I just want to give a huge shout out to Broad Runoff Road, who will be hosting the Fall Foliage Race, and Harper's Ferry and Brunswick. So right here in our home neck of the woods, October 18th. And the cool part about that is all the proceeds from that are going to come back to this club to build a gear closet so that we can put team uniforms, gear together. I mean, bikes alone, we all know the barriers to entry are vast. And I don't ever want that to be something that stops a kid from having this experience. So, a huge shout out to my wife for all the support for all these kids for coming out, the school system for the aid that they've given us, the towns for the permitting and all of it. We couldn't have done it without everybody else. Thank you for having us on the show, of course, too, and helping us share that message with the world. So
thank you. And thanks for you coming on the show. And thank you to Jeremy and to Jocelyn, to Jared, and for the other Jeremy and all the other J's and other letters that are in part of the team. I love what you've done today, what you've had a chance to share about. I do want to say to those who are listening at home, if you want to support Full Steam Ahead, I will have information in the show notes, or you can do that, or you can email me at brian@ardarkzone.com. And I also encourage, if there are any race directors out there that want to encourage younger racers and any educators, to reach out to Jeremy and get a hold of how he's done it and build teams there. Because the big thing to point out is this was not designed in a room somewhere as part of a 5-year strategic plan. This was an adult who liked adventure racing, who talked about it after other kids got involved. And here we are now with such a wonderful activity. So Full Steam Ahead, thank you for coming on to the show. Best of luck at your races. When you pass me in a race, be kind. Be kind to the old man. I'm begging you. Okay? Give me a goo or something. Help me fix my flat tire. And you guys keep being great. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
There you have it, folks. Another episode of the Dark Zone Adventure Racing Podcast. Thanks for being here. Please check the show notes for information about Full Steam Ahead Adventure Racing, including a link that you could donate to their work. That's right. Donate to the kids and get them some gear, and it will be fantastic if you could do that. Once again, thanks for being a listener. Feel free to like, click, and subscribe. And if you like what you hear here, please pass word along about the Dark Zone. And remember, if you keep racing, we'll keep talking.